Hello, greetings, and welcome to Dividend Blasters. This is our 54th video. Topic today, follow the smart money, BlackRock, and their key holdings. That's right. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what BlackRock owns and what they have changed. And the focus here is going to show you what has been reflected in their latest submission, their quarterly 13F submission to the SEC. As some of you may know, the 13F is a required submission that institutional investors that manage more than $100 million must submit to the SEC. And it shows their key increases and decreases in their holdings. It's a matter of public record. So we as investors, we as American citizens are able to go to the SEC and check it out. They're a publicly traded company. We have every right to look at them. And I think it's smart. And why am I sharing this with you? Because we are investors. So maybe we invest in BlackRock, maybe we don't, but I'll bet you are investing in one of their holdings or many of their holdings, as am I. So I would like to know, what are they doing with their money as far as Microsoft or Apple or Broadcom or Nvidia or Johnson & Johnson or Procter & Gamble? I'd like to know these things. Are they increasing their holdings? Are they decreasing their holdings? So it's important to me. So that's why I'm doing this, and I think it should be important to all investors to know these things. So a little disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. Purpose of this video is for information and education. It reflects my own personal opinions, my research, and my experience as an independent investor for more than 30 years. So I urge you, do your own research, your own due diligence, and consult a financial advisor prior to making any financial investment decisions. And let me say thank you for joining us here today at Dividend Blasters. I'm going to kindly ask you to give us a like. And at the end of the video, if you feel so inclined, subscribe to our channel here at Dividend Blasters and share this video with a friend or a family member. So I've talked about BlackRock before. I've mentioned it in videos. I've actually covered key pieces of BlackRock in videos. BlackRock, as I mentioned, is the world's largest hedge fund. They manage over $9.5 trillion. You can actually go to their website, blackrock.com, read all about them. What's important of note, and it's really not the subject of today's video, but I want to re-mention it, is that they are going to be, I presume, getting approval by the SEC to issue a Bitcoin-based ETF. Approval hasn't happened yet, but they have a great track record. They've received approval on 575 of 576 applications with the SEC. So that is a record second to none. So the plan would be, if they get approval, they will invest in Bitcoin, and that you as an investor can invest in the ETF that invest in Bitcoin. They are planning to have a partnership with Coinbase to hold custody of the Bitcoins. SEC has yet to approve the applications. My understanding is that it could happen early next year, early 2024. We will see. But let's get back to the topic today, their 13F submission to the SEC. So you can go to their website at the SEC, sec.gov. You can also go to 13F info, SEC 13F filings. Do a Google search on that and just type in BlackRock and you pull this. And you can see all their quarterly submissions. So I'm going to do three things. I'm going to show you what the top 10 holdings are by value currently by BlackRock right now in Q2. Then I'm going to show you the changes in value, and then I'm also going to show you the changes in the number of shares. That'll give you some decent insight, not into just how much holdings are changing in value, but what are they actually buying versus what are they selling? What are they getting rid of? So it's not always clear if you just look at changes in value. But let's just talk about changes in value. You can see that the top 10 holdings of BlackRock are shown here. And I'm looking at number 1, Apple, number 2, Microsoft, 3, Amazon, 4, Nvidia, and then 5, Google. and that is one of the class shares of Google, GOOGL, and that is over $50 billion. Of course, Apple is over $201 billion that BlackRock has holdings in. Microsoft, 182. Let's do the bottom five. Tesla, 48 billion. Meta Platforms, 44 billion. The other class of Google, 43 billion. United Healthcare, 35.6 billion. And then number 10, Berkshire Hathaway. So Berkshire Hathaway is number 10, and they occupy a little under 1% of BlackRock's portfolio. And just goes to show you, $35 billion occupying about 1%. So this is basically a stock portfolio of about 3.5 trillion. Now they own $9.5 trillion, or they manage $9.5 trillion in assets. So this is 3.5 trillion total, and Berkshire Hathaway is about 1% of that, or 35 billion. It's absolutely mind blowing how big BlackRock is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through the top 100. All right, and I'm not going to read them all, but I'm going to go slow and let you look at them. And I'm going to just mention the top 100. I'm doing 25 at a time. We already talked about the top 10. So when I'm looking at 11 through 25, I'm looking at Johnson & Johnson. And the value is, let's see, what is the value? The value is, for Q2, it's $32 billion. Eli Lilly, 30 billion. Visa, 30 billion. One of their ETFs, 30 billion. ExxonMobil, 29. JP Morgan Chase, 27. The chip maker, Broadcom, 27. MasterCard, 25.9 billion. Procter & Gamble, 24 billion. Merck, 23.7 billion. Home Depot, 22 billion. PepsiCo, 20 billion. Chevron, 19 billion. AbbVie, 18.7 billion. Coca-Cola, 18.2 billion. So, it's interesting. You can actually look at the change in value to the right. I'm going to drill down more into that a couple slides down, but you can basically see the change in dollar value. And you can actually see, for instance, look at Apple. The change in dollar value has gone up $30 billion, or 18%. Now, does that mean that they increased the number of shares in Apple? No. Maybe they decreased them. Maybe they stayed the same. But we do know that Apple has been going up in the market. So I'm going to draw that distinction as we move through the next few slides. So anyway, these were the top 25 change in value. Let's do the next 25. Cisco, and I'm looking at Adobe, Costco, Pfizer. So interestingly, Pfizer is $16.3 billion. They're number 29 in the BlackRock portfolio, but I do know for a fact that they sold many of their shares in Pfizer. They decreased their exposure. So that's something you want to keep an eye on. You want to see what's going in and what's coming out. Abbott Labs, Accenture, Oracle, AMD. I skipped over Texas Instruments. Bank America, Netflix, Lind, Comcast, Verizon, Danaher, Wells Fargo, Prologis, the REIT, NextEra Energy, Intel, and Bristol Myers Squibb. You can actually tell on this slide by looking at the change in dollars from Q2 to Q1 that it is decreasing. So even though these are some of the top holdings by dollar value, you can see that some of them have gone down. So Pfizer has gone down $1.8 billion. Okay, that is a lot of money. Even though they're number 29 in the portfolio, they have come down. What else has come down? Thermo Fisher. What else? I'm looking at Texas Instruments. That's come down. I'm looking at Verizon. That's come down. I'm looking at NextEra Energy and Bristol Myers Squibb. Let's do the next 25. Well, let's see. Disney, Intuit, Amgen, Applied Statistics, Nike. Applied Materials. I'm thinking statistics. Nike, ConocoPhillips, the big oil and gas company. So that's interesting. ConocoPhillips is number 56 in the portfolio. They have a value of $10.2 billion. Yet the value has increased $1.29 billion. So what's interesting? I'd like to find out how much they've increased their holdings. Did they increase or did they decrease or did they stay the same? Because I know that oil and gas has been kind of up and down a little bit. It's been going up a little. Some of mine have. But we'll take a look. Qualcomm is next. The value has gone down with Qualcomm. Qualcomm has had some trouble lately, and I think it's a really good chip maker. Medtronics, the medical device company, they're next. 10.1 billion. Intuitive, Raytheon, the defense contractor, 10 billion. Then a bunch of these are in the 8 and $9 billion range. IBM, UPS, Lowe's, Philip Morris, Elevance, the healthcare company, Honeywell, Union Pacific, AT&T, Caterpillar, 8.3 billion, Starbucks, 7.96 billion. Okay, let's go to the next 25. Next 25, I'm looking at dollar value. These are all in the $7 and $6 billion range. Stryker, American Express, Boeing, GE, Morgan Stanley. Look at Lockheed Martin, 7.68 billion. But the total value has gone down $226 million. They've been a little bit price wise, they've been kind of struggling a little. Citigroup has come down, and Citigroup occupies number 83 position in the BlackRock portfolio. John Deere, ADP, okay, the HR payroll outsourcer. Mondelez, Goldman Sachs, 7.3 billion, and they've come down about $310 million. Let's go. Look at number 93. BlackRock. Well, they invest in themselves, so that's good. And that's 6.94 billion, and that's come down about 39 million. Have they actually decreased their holdings? I think they might have. I think they may have sold some of their stock, but we'll find out. Next one is the telecom REIT, American Towers, 6.9 billion. It's down about $373 million. Boeing, let's see, CVS is number 99, and the 100 is Becton Dixon. Okay, let's go. So anyway, those were the top 100 in value. So now what I'm going to show you are the change in shares. So what have they been buying and what have they been selling? And I think that this is really the heart of what I want to talk to you about. So the top acquisition for BlackRock in Q2 has been AT&T. They've acquired 11.6 million new shares. Okay, they're number 70 in the portfolio. So the value is about $8.5 billion. Next one is Bank America, 10.4 million shares. Then the next one is one of their ETFs, 9.869 million. That's interesting. ConocoPhillips, the oil and gas company. Well, they've increased their holdings in Conoco, 8.6 million shares. Next one is Tesla, Nike, Cisco Systems, Verizon, Apple, and Starbucks. So interestingly, Apple holds the number one position in the BlackRock portfolio, and they increased their holdings in Apple by 4.6 million shares, or 0.45%. All right, we're going to do the same thing again. Quickly go through the top 100, 25 at a time. I'm not going to read them all because you can look at these, but you get the picture. You can see where the acquisitions are and then where the ones they are going to be selling, which I haven't showed you yet. I'm going to show you. So I already did the top 10, and I'm looking at the far right column. The next 15, Morgan Stanley, Oracle, Amazon, Visa, GE, Meta Platforms, IBM, Applied Materials, NextEra Energy, Broadcom, okay? They're increasing Broadcom, Mondelez, Abbott Laboratories, Raytheon, the defense contractor, Prologis, the REIT, Netflix, that's the top 25. And again, we're looking at the number of shares that have changed from Q1 into Q2. Well, this is interesting. They increased their holdings in Intel. That's not something I do, but they must know something that I don't know. Qualcomm. So even though Qualcomm has come down in value, they're increasing it. I guess they're looking at Qualcomm as a buy. It's a bargain. And Qualcomm is a quality chip company, and it pays a great dividend. Stryker, Philip Morris, PepsiCo, Boeing, Honeywell, MasterCard. Let's go down a little. I'm looking at Walmart. I'm looking at AbbVie. I'm looking at Lam Research, Texas Instruments. I'm looking at number 42, CVS, Citigroup. 43. Let's go down a little. I'm looking at American Tower, number 48. So they're increasing Nope, nope, nope. American Tower, I stand corrected. American Tower, they're actually decreasing their number of shares. So they're actually selling. This is the beginning of the top 100 that is being sold. So American Tower, the REIT, they sold 13,000 shares. McDonald's, they sold 25,000. Lockheed Martin, they sold 44,000. Remember, I showed you that the value of their Lockheed Martin holdings has come down. Part of it is the share price has come down, but part of it is that they are selling Lockheed Martin. Okay, let's go to the next 25. Next 25, and I'm looking at Equinix, Intuit, Pfizer. They sold 238,000 shares of Pfizer. Let's go down. Well, look at this. They sold 390,000 shares of their own company, BlackRock, number 58. ADP, 404,000 shares sold. Let's go down. Elevance, 454. John Deere, 490. Costco, wow, 490. When they do this, they probably think that some of these holdings are a little bit overpriced and they could be at risk of a market correction. That's probably what they're looking at. They sold Goldman Sachs 634,000 shares, Berkshire Hathaway 700,000 shares, American Express 750,000 shares, AMD 895,000 shares. Let's go down a little. Eli Lilly 1.19 million shares. Microsoft, wow, they sold 1.3 million shares of Microsoft. And of course, look at UPS. It's everybody's favorite dividend investment. They sold 1.3 million shares. Let's look at the last 25 of the top 100. Caterpillar, 1.34 million. I'm going down. I see JP Morgan Chase, 1.57 million shares. Let's look at NVIDIA. Wow, the chip maker, which has been on a tear the last 6 months. They sold 1.59 million shares. Johnson & Johnson, the dividend king, they sold 2.1 million shares. Lowe's, 2.2 million. I'm going down. I'm looking at Wells Fargo. They sold 2.7 million shares. Medtronics, wow, the medical device company, 2.7 million shares. Bristol Myers Squibb, 2.9 million. They sold one of their own ETFs, IVV, 3.4 million shares. Merck, the drug company, 3.45 million. Procter and Gamble, say it ain't so. The dividend king, they sold 3.5 million. They sold one of the classes of the Google stock, Alphabet, 3.64 million. Home Depot, whoa, they sold 5.8 million shares of their Home Depot holdings. They sold 5.97 million shares of ExxonMobil. More. They sold more Google, 6.75 million. So interestingly, let's think about this. They have sold significant number of shares of Nvidia, significant shares of Microsoft, significant shares of Google. They probably think that there's going to be a market correction around some of the artificial intelligence stocks out there. Something to think about, folks. They sold 8.95 million shares of their Coca-Cola and 9.1 million shares of their oil and gas holdings in Chevron. Wow, those are the top 100 change in shares. And so then finally, what is the change in dollar value in their holdings? Well, um, Apple is still number one. Okay. Apple has not lost their number one position. Microsoft is still number two. NVIDIA is still number three. And I'm looking at the second right column. Amazon, number four. Meta Platforms is number five. Tesla, Broadcom, Eli Lilly, and then the two Alphabet Google stocks. Those round out the top 10 in rank by change in value. So they've all gone up, okay, interestingly. And you can see the percentage change, but what I'm looking at is the rank, and I'm looking at the absolute dollar change in value. So let's step back for a second. The dollar change in value in BlackRock's holdings in Apple are $30.98 billion. Microsoft, 27.63 billion. Nvidia, 26 billion. Amazon, 16.87 billion. Meta, 12.29 billion. So you can see what's going on. So even though they've decreased, we know that they decreased their shares in Microsoft and in Nvidia and in Google, people are still buying it. Those share prices are going up. Their holdings are still going up. Their holding values are still going up, even though the number of shares or holdings that BlackRock holds in these companies is coming down. Very interesting. So here's the top 100 of changes in value. We already just did the top 10. So then after 10, you can see, you can see Adobe, Oracle, Netflix, Berkshire Hathaway. Those are the Class B shares. Intuitive Surgical, JP Morgan Chase, MasterCard, and Visa. Okay. AMD, or Advanced Micro Devices. Let's go down a little. Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Wells Fargo, and ConocoPhillips. So that means that all of these have increased by more than $1 billion. And you know that Apple increased by $30 billion from Q1 to Q2. Outside of that top 10, I'm looking at Adobe, 3.6 billion, Oracle, 3.48 billion. Let's go down. JP Morgan Chase, 2.7 billion, MasterCard, 2.2 billion, Visa, 2.2 billion, Johnson & Johnson, 1.76 billion, Merck, 1.48 billion, ConocoPhillips, 1.29 billion. Interesting. Okay, that was the top 25 change in dollar value of their holdings. Next 25, GE. Then I'm going down a little bit. Abbott Labs, Walmart, 1 billion, Costco, 1 billion. Let's go down a little more. So we do know that they sold shares in McDonald's, but the value of their holdings went up $954 million. They sold shares of their own ETF IWW, and yet it went up 918 million. Let's go down a little. Another one of their ETFs, IXUS. They sold shares in that. I do know that. We covered that, and it went up 780 million. People like BlackRock. They invest in BlackRock. So BlackRock can afford to do this. They can afford to be very selective, and they can even sell shares in their own ETFs. Let's go down a little. So IBM went up 526 million. PepsiCo, 502 million. The Cigna Group, 461 million. Mondelez, 447 million. That rounds out the top 50 change in dollar value. Let's go and look at the next 25. I'm looking at number 52, Bank of America went up 341 million. Intel, 296 million. American Express, 293 million. Caterpillar, 276. United Health, 233. I actually have shares in lots of these companies, and I think they're wonderful companies. I always like to see them go up. But again, as a dividend growth investor, I'm building my holdings. I'm building my passive income. These are good companies that are going to be around for decades. So if they go up and they go down a little bit, I'm okay as long as they pay a growing dividend. But I find this interesting because this kind of tells you what BlackRock is doing. We can kind of get a good sense of is some company up in BlackRock's perception, or are they down a little? I think it's fascinating to know. I'm looking at number 62. I'm looking at Boeing. Then I'm looking at Cisco Systems. Let's go down a little. I see Morgan Stanley at 65. And then you actually see the dollar value start to come down, okay, with number 66. And that is Prologis. Prologis went down by $13.7 billion. We did cover Prologis, and I do think that they decreased their holdings of Prologis. I have to go back and check. Starbucks, I believe they increased their shares in Starbucks, but the value of their holdings went down by $34.5 billion. BlackRock went down. In their own stock, it went down $39.9 billion. Let's go down. Citigroup, wow, Citigroup went down $129 billion. Union Pacific, $150 billion. ADP, $186 billion. Lockheed Martin, the defense contractor, and I will call them the preeminent defense contractor. Several shares of Lockheed, it went down $226 billion. And then let's look at the last 25. And these, of course, have all come down in value in Q2 since Q1. NextEra Energy, Goldman Sachs, $310 billion down. John Deere, $344. Verizon, $346 billion. Let's go down. American Tower, the REIT, the telecom REIT, down $373 billion. Texas Instruments, down $408 billion. Oh no, CVS, oh, 466 billion. Elevance, the healthcare company, 525 billion. Qualcomm, 475 billion dollars. Qualcomm's been getting a little bit beat up in the market, but I got to tell you, they're a quality chip maker and they pay a growing dividend. Home Depot down, and I do know they sold shares in Home Depot, but they went down 605 billion dollars. Danaher, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola went down. Bristol Myers Squibb. Walt Disney, ExxonMobil, Amgen, AT&T, Pfizer, Chevron, 2.2 billion, and AbbVie, 3.3 billion. So, folks, those are the top 100 changes in value. And I'd say that the 60, I think it was 66 through 100, those came down. So, folks, that's it. I hope you found this to be informative. The purpose here, again, was to share with you what is BlackRock doing with their money. And it gives you a good indication of maybe what you and me should be doing with our money. I find this to be fascinating, and I get very excited every time a 13F submission is published. Uh, Something that I love to look at. So I hope you found this enjoyable. I will kindly ask you to give us a like, subscribe to our channel here at Dividend Blasters, and share the video with a friend. And follow me on Twitter at Dividend Blast 99. I'm also on Instagram at Dividend Blasters. So have a wonderful day. Until our next video, God bless.